conflict. It's a loaded word. We tend to feel uncomfortable when we even hear the word. But the reality is not all conflict is bad. And we actually want quite a lot of conflict in our Scrum teams, but we want the right kinds of conflict. And a common question we get is, what should a Scrum Master do, or how does a Scrum Master help resolve conflict in a Scrum team or in the organization? And there's a lot of models for what kinds of conflicts there are and how to resolve them. And like any model, they're all kind of wrong, but some are useful. And I've got one here that we quite like using at Scrum.org and that I teach as part of my classes as well to Scrum Masters, which is the kind of 5 levels volcano of conflict and how to kind of approach dealing with it. But the first thing to kind of hit on its head is this idea of resolving conflict. That gives the impression, this visual in our heads, that we are somehow stepping in and solving everything and fixing the day. But that's not necessarily what we want to be doing. We want to facilitate the resolution of it. So we don't figure it out ourselves. We don't force people to kiss and make up, so to speak. We help them get to a closure. We get them to an end state of either solution found or level of conflict be escalated to where they can find a solution themselves. Because ultimately it's going to be between the people having the conflict that the resolution has to be found. But how can we help them with that? That's the question, right? That's the rub. Well, this model here has 5 levels. And what we want to find is this balance between artificial harmony when we're purposefully not pushing back on anything. We're not questioning things. We're not really even challenging stuff, even though we might see that it's wrong, because we don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to mess with the status quo, which can feel like a good thing, but it's actually a bad thing. It actually leads to misbehaviors and bad stuff down the line, which we're then going to clean up, and will likely lead to bigger conflicts when those things come true. And we also do not want to stray into the world of personal attacks, right? It doesn't help anyone, and it's a negative kind of conflict. And we want to straddle that line, that ideal conflict line. And like straddling any line, we're going to sometimes stray to either side, right? And we want to help make sure we can steer things back accordingly. So the kind of conflict we're looking for then is problem to solve kind of conflict, problem solving conflict. This is when we're agreeing or disagreeing strongly about what kind of solution we think is best. And that's good. We want that. You want lots of that, because that leads to better solutions. It's not about my solution is better because I think so. It's about, why is your solution better? Maybe it isn't. And maybe sometimes we have 2 original ideas, and then we find that maybe there's a 3rd or 4th or 5th even better option once we start breaking these things down and maybe even combining them into something greater than before. It tends to be task-oriented, tends to have a lot of frustrations. You might have some swearing, depending on the kind of environment you're in. And that's okay as long as the swearing is at the task at hand, right? At the problem, with frustrated swearing, right? Not personal attacks. Never personal attacks. Those are not acceptable. So what do we do there? Well, we just want to make sure we collaborate. We try and get consensus. Where we cannot gather consensus, we at least get consent. I.e., I still think your idea is bad, but I'm willing to go ahead and try it anyway. That's fine. We don't want that every time, but sometimes that's what we have to settle for. The next level up is the disagreement stage. And this is where we can start getting into trouble. You might stray in here now and then, and that's all right, as long as we can get back down from it. And disagreement is where we start looking a little bit more at self-protection. We get a little bit guarded, we get a bit more emotional, and this is when those kind of personal objections and insults can start rearing their ugly head, and we don't want that. But straying up towards disagreement can be fruitful, because again, we can have those more emotional conflicts that we might need to have, which can help us uncover greater interpersonal issues within the team that we can resolve to become even better in the future. But we have to tread very carefully here. So how do we do that? Well, we make sure we are supportive of the people having the conflict. We provide safety, right? No personal attacks. Make it safe. Make people make sure that they can speak and be heard and respected, right? Model the Scrum values, right? Very important. And point north. What is we're here to achieve, right? Why do we have this original conflict, this original disagreement? And once we do that, we can help them figure out a path forward and hopefully bring it down to a collaborative, consensus or consent-driven conversation and conflict. And then we start getting into the trickier stuff. And this is the parts where we start getting into trouble and where we really want to be very, very careful. Right? This is when we get into the contest territory, crusade, and world war territory. This is very negative conflict. This is the kind of conflict that can really escalate and destroy a team or a whole business if we're not careful. We have to be very, very wary of these things. In contest conflicts, factions form, we're focusing on winning over solving problems, and what we need to do there is just accommodate, negotiate, and focus on the facts. Very, very objective, very negotiation focused, and very accommodation focused. Guess what? We're not all going to get what we can or want out of this. We need to find a middle ground that's going to work to get us out of this level, down to disagreement, down to problem solving. But tread very carefully. At this level, chances are you will need to do a little bit more learning and to be a little bit more expert in how to help facilitate these kinds of conflict resolutions. In the crusade stage, now it's no longer about figuring out problems. Now it's ideological. It's us versus them. It's all about personal attacks. This is real bad territory. If you've ever been in this, this is when you just feel like you're stepping into a war zone every time you step into the office, right? People are sitting and having conversations separately from each other. We're not even sharing solutions or ideas. And in fact, we're often disparaging each other, regardless of which idea is better or not, just because it's not our idea, right? It's not our camp's idea, therefore it's bad and wrong. Once again here, big focus on safety. Safety, 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 and shuttle communications, i.e. you might have to be the ferry between the camps to make sure they can even communicate, and again, try and drive towards some kind of accommodations, negotiations, fact-finding, to find common ground, essentially. Make them understand it is not us versus them, right? It is us and us versus problems. What common ground do we have? Focus on what we have in common, what we share, what we enjoy doing together, and work your way down this conflict tree, or volcano in this instance. And finally, we have World War. This is essentially the point where resolution of conflict is almost impossible. It's no longer about winning, it's about the other people losing. Right? This is very dangerous territory, and this is very likely where conflict resolution is not possible anymore. It's not that it's impossible. Stranger things have happened, but it's very, very difficult. You will definitely need expert facilitation skills, but chances are, at this point as a Scrum Master, the better option might be to look at other options. Do we no longer have the right people in the team? Do we make radical changes to be able to say what we're doing here with this product to ensure we have an effective team and doing Scrum well and delivering value? Which might mean if you're working in an organization that has HR is very likely involved at this point, because chances are complaints are flying left, right, and center, right? What do we do here? Well, we just avoid harm. That's all we can do. And chances are you will need external support to figure this out. It's a depressing note to end on, but to bring it back to what are we here to do as Scrum Masters? We are not here to solve the problems. We are here to help others solve it themselves, and we facilitate that conversation through these different steps, these different methods of working together. And by doing that, you will get a team that can handle conflict on their own. You want to make sure that not only are you able to deal with conflict and help people facilitate it, you want to build up the team so that any one individual in the Scrum team could do this in your absence. I call it the holiday test. If you can't go on a holiday because everything will fall apart, we haven't done our job enough. We got to fix some stuff. All right. Thank you very much for watching. And if you like what you saw and you want to hear more about what I've got to say in the future on similar questions, or if you have a question yourself, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. You can also email me at oscar.styf@pragmaticshift.com. Please do like the video, share it with others if you think they might benefit from it, or follow my profile to see stuff as they come out as well. And I would love to be your Scrum trainer. So please find my content on pragmaticshift.com. You can find the courses I've scheduled for the year, or on scrum.org.com as well. Look forward to seeing you in my classroom soon.